Mike Gill with you. And, of course, it is a Monday. It's a Mosher Monday. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast is here as we take a look at tonight's matchup between the Eagles and the Falcons. It's finally here, Geoff Mosher. And yesterday, man, Eagles got to be on high alert. I mean, if you thought that this Falcons team was kind of like a middle-of-the-road type of team, you had the Saints, you had the Buccaneers, you had Detroit lost yesterday, Minnesota beat San Francisco. Obviously, there was a lot of upsets yesterday, and then you get the news, Moshe. Let's start there. No A.J. Brown. What does that do to start off this conversation for Football at 4 for the Eagles offense tonight?
Well, it certainly changes the dynamic of the offense, Mike. And we've only seen A.J. Brown not be able to play a game for the Eagles once since they traded for him.
Didn't go well.
Yeah, it did not go well. That was the Buccaneers last year in the playoffs. I mean, they were a sinking ship prior to that game, but that really was the icing on the cake. Devontae Smith did have a very good game that game, and I would expect he'll be one of your top target guys tonight against the Falcons, Mike. And it's also a new offense. It's also Kellen Moore's offense, so there's not reason to think that just because it sputtered against Tampa last year when it was already spiraling out of control that they can't move the chains at all and you're going to see a repeat. However, what A.J. Brown brings to this offense, is that he's the best player. He might be the best. When you look at the entire team, he may be the best overall player on the team, offense, defense, whatever you want. And secondly, Mike, he brings a physical, intimidating presence. He brings the ability for Jalen Hurts in the offense to make a play when a play isn't always there to be made, just with hand fighting or using late hands or getting open with physicality that you really don't see in any other player on offense. I think Dallas Goedert is a physical player, and I think that Devontae Smith, despite his frame, he plays bigger than his frame, but there's nobody who – I mean, that touchdown last week, I don't know it seems like 3 years ago now, against Green Bay, where he beat Jair Alexander, used some hand fighting and got free. You don't see that from anybody else on this team, and that's where I'm concerned tonight, is just having that physically imposing presence when you need a play on third down.
All right, let's get into who picks up the slack. What is the configuration? We know Smith will probably be the guy, but who else now? Is there a Paris Campbell? He was inactive the last time. Do you have a bigger day from Dotson? Johnny Wilson also hamstring problems as well. So who's somebody that maybe picks up the slack if, Smith gets his? Who's the other guy tonight?
Yeah, it's a good question. A.J. Brown is the X receiver in this offense. He's, usually lined up along the boundary side, and they don't really have a player who is a natural X. I mean, even the big 6'6" rookie Johnny Wilson is, questionable because of the hamstring, but they haven't really used him in that capacity. You might see formationally things to compensate for the absence, more 2x2, more 1x3 with Dallas Goedert as your one split out with, maybe 3 on the other side to try to isolate Goedert and get him going. In some ways, you might see more 12 personnel with Goedert and Calcaterra on the field. I expect, and we'll see, I would anticipate a little more throwing to the running back if the quarterback can do that and wants to. Last week, it was, we make a big deal about the wheel route touchdown as far as throwing to the running back, but Barkley only had 2 catches. I think Gainwell had 1, so it wasn't a real festival of throwing to the running back. But they really don't have a natural X receiver to line up there. I imagine you'll see Devontae Smith there a little bit. And Jahan Dotson is a Z, a slot. I mean, it's been mostly a move receiver on the opposite side. So I'm curious like you. I think everybody is wondering, how do you replace not just the production, not just the physicality, but formationally, who is the guy that lines up on the line of scrimmage, absorbs the press, and can make a play?
Yeah, and if that guy is Dotson and they decide, hey, because, look, he's getting a crash course for this offense to begin with. Hey, you're going to be the slot guy. Now do you say, hey, you've been trying to crash course the slot. We're going to move you to an X position and put someone else in the slot. Is that Britton Covey tonight possibly?
Well, first of all, I don't see Dotson as the guy who would move. If anything, they elevate Paris Campbell with his speed and his experience in the league. You might see him and Devontae kind of rotating there.
Yeah.
Dotson is not a big guy, and he doesn't play big. He did at Penn State, surprisingly. He made a lot of great contested catches. He did not play big in Washington, and that's a big reason why they got rid of him, and he's here. So, but yes, you could see him more in the slot. You could see Britton Covey. I do think it's kind of an all-hands-on-deck approach. Whoever's available. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me if 5 or 6 different guys were receiving, were pass catchers in this game. But the reality is that doesn't matter. What matters is when it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, when you need it, when the defense is about to come after you. How many times do we see A.J. Brown win on a comeback, right, on against the blitz, or just fight his way to get across the middle and make extra yards to get what they need? That is, I don't see that in any other receiver other than Devontae Smith, who, again, is probably going to command a lot of coverage with A.J. Brown out.
Well, Jeff, we knew, if one of the top 2 guys got hurt or had a missed time, that this was going to be a problem. The question is hamstring. This kind of popped up Friday. This is something that happened Friday, and Sirianni said, we'll see. And sometimes it seems like it's innocent, and the next thing you know, these are 4 to 5, 6-week injuries sometimes. That's the big picture look at this thing is how it kind of popped up Friday to the point where Friday it comes up, Saturday you're out, and now Monday you're not playing. How long does this thing possibly keep you out for?
Right. Now, A.J. Brown's had some minor things, since he came over, a hand here or a knee there, but he's managed to not miss any, outside of that one game against Tampa Bay, which was important. But so you hope this doesn't linger. You hope he's a quick healer, a Bryce Harper-like healer where he just get back way before you would expect. And you hope this hamstring, and maybe they're just being cautious about it more so than pushing him because it's just week 2. But you're right, as far as the depth at wide receiver or lack thereof, it would be pretty catastrophic for this team to be without him or without Devontae Smith for a 2 or 3 or more week stretch.
One of the questions on Saturday was about that third wide receiver like that. It's been in flux, Zacchaeus and Pascal and Watkins, that no one has really been able to be a big part of this offense. Someone's going to have to step up maybe tonight. We'll see who that is. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. A.J. Brown ruled out for the game. That happened on Saturday, but everybody else seemingly is healthy here. So let's get your take, Geoff Mosher, on Isaiah Rodgers and the secondary's role tonight against, this isn't like a high-flying Atlanta team, but Drake London, high draft choice, pretty good. Kyle Pitts, a tight end. They got some interesting weapons here. What does that secondary look like tonight?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with Isaiah Rodgers back, especially listen, Quinyon Mitchell's not coming off the field. When they're in base, if they're in base, which is, nowadays very seldomly used. But, with the good running game that the Falcons have, you might see the Eagles in a traditional 3 linebacker formation there. We'll see. But either way, when they don't have their nickel back in, you'll see Quinyon Mitchell outside opposite Darius Slay. But what happens when they are in nickel, which they'll be in 60% of the time? Does Mitchell move inside and Isaiah Rodgers then plays the outside like you saw all training camp? I suspect that would be the case. The other alternative, Mike, is, and we saw this in the opener, is that Mitchell stays outside and Avonte Maddox is your nickel. And the big topic that Adam and I talked about on Inside the Birds this week is, what is Vic Fangio's patience like? What is his leash like? It was not very long with Devin White, right? I mean, Devin White was your starter all throughout training camp and preseason. It looked like he was, and then he wasn't because and it was performance. Nakobe Dean played better. And by the opener, Nakobe Dean was the guy, even with Devin White having the ankle injury, he would have been the guy. So will Avonte Maddox go out there for the nickel? Will Cooper DeJean get more nickel reps? Is he ready to assume a bigger role? Do they split it? Or do they say, we got to put Quinyon Mitchell inside because Kyle Pitts is tearing us up, right? And he's a tough matchup for a Maddox or a DeJean right now. And then we'll live with Isaiah Rodgers on the outside. I don't know the answer to that. Mm-hmm. That we'll find out tonight. He has options. But I do wonder how much he's willing to go with Avonte Maddox as his nickel because Avonte didn't play well.
Yeah, do you get the feeling that they want to get Cooper sooner than later?
Yes.
Like if he's ready to go, he'll be the guy getting the snaps tonight?
Well, I don't know what ready to go means for them yet. I mean, he's still just 1 week. He's 10 days later than the last game. In the last game, he played 6 snaps as a dime back. That to me says, okay, you had an extra week of practice. Can you now play, 15 snaps? Does that enable you to rotate with Avonte Maddox where you're on, 30% of those nickel reps, right? I don't know. I don't know the answer. It's not just about coverage. It's about the run too. When you're going to have to defend against Bijan Robinson. And if you're in the nickel because you don't know if they're going to run and pass, your nickel corner has to be able to come up and make some plays in the run that you didn't see Maddox make against the Packers. And you wonder if he'll make it against the Browns. You wonder if Cooper DeJean, do you want to put Cooper now, fresh off the injury with only a few weeks of practice, in this spot where he's having to make a ton of tackles? It's a tough call. I imagine we're going to see a variety of packages tonight.
Real quick before we jump to some things on the Falcons, tomorrow will we be talking about a good game from Bryce Huff?
The Falcons have a good offensive line, but if you watch the tape against the Steelers, they're still seeing T.J. Watt in their nightmares. I mean, gave him fits, but T.J. Watt gives everybody fits, right? And he has been for years. Bryce Huff hasn't proven yet that he's going to give offensive tackle fits all game long for 3 to 4 years and be that kind of player, even though he's paid like a really nice pass rusher. So I think this is a learning assignment for all of us on who Bryce Huff really is and if he can do a better job. I do want to throw out a little bit of the opener for both teams. I mean, the Packers played a very, very impressive game on defense yesterday, right? And you notice they were at home. They weren't falling all over themselves like they were doing, and so were the Eagles. So I would imagine the Eagles' pass rush will be a little bit better, but it is a good offensive line that they're facing, so we'll see.
All right, Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, and, of course, Eagles and Falcons tonight. Let's look at the Falcons offense. Give me a couple thoughts when I, say, hey, tell me about the Falcons offense. What worries you tonight about what they do offensively?
All right, well, breaking news here, and your listeners are really going to be happy about the intel that I'm about to give you, Mike. But there's this guy named Bijan Robinson that the Falcons have. He's pretty good. I don't know if everybody knows who Bijan Robinson is, but no, he's an excellent running back. And again, you give the benefit of the doubt to anybody who played on that Brazil field that that's not what you look like in run defense all the time, especially with guys slipping and falling. But I mean, the Eagles really haven't been a great run defensive team for a couple of years now. And so, the Falcons are going to feed Bijan a lot. And what you really worry about is the explosive plays in both the run and the pass game from Bijan. And then I would also be concerned about the mismatch of Kyle Pitts against the interior defensive, alignment there of whatever the Eagles are going to throw out.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see, Jeff, who the Eagles decide to kind of try to line up on Pitts. Pitts, I don't know. He hasn't really lived up to the hype, when he was coming out. I don't know if that's circumstantial that the offense he's in, the quarterbacks he's played in, but we know he's a talent and a tough guy to kind of match up with. So we'll see how that works with Philadelphia tonight. When you look at the Falcons' defense, Geoff Mosher, what is something, they have some interesting, new guys. Judon's there now. Simmons is there now. Grady Jarrett's there. So what is the Falcons defense tonight going to look like?
Hey, it's a good defense. It's not great yet. I mean, I think their secondary is fairly impressive because they have some really tall physical safeties and Justin Simmons, obviously, and Bates. They have a very good corner in I'm forgetting Terrell, right?
AJ Terrell, yeah. It was we thought, Friday's show when we talked to Adam, we thought AJ Brown versus AJ Terrell, that was going to be a big matchup in this game. Right. Who wins that?
Yeah, no, I guess we won't see that now. So they have a good secondary, and they have really good secondary coaches. Raheem Morris is a defensive backs coach by nature. He's the head coach. And I don't know if a lot of people realize this. Their defensive coordinator, Jimmy Lake, was the guy at the University of Washington who was in charge. He was the defensive backs coach there when it seemed like every corner who came out of that program was A, great in college, and then B, really good in the NFL, except for Sidney Jones, who was an All-American, but when he came to the Eagles, he's coming off the injury. He did not perform well. But guys like Marcus Peters and and Buda Baker and Elijah Molden was drafted, and Kyler Gordon and all the Trufant brothers, Desmond, Marcus, Isaiah. I mean, that school just bred really good defensive backs. So now he's in charge of the defense as the defensive coordinator, but it'll basically be Raheem's defense. I just think that they're missing a little bit in the pass rush. Matthew Judon was a very important acquisition for them, the trade they made to get him from the Patriots. And Grady Jarrett, one of my favorite 3-technique tackles, he's back from an injury last year, ACL. So that gives them 2 guys. I thought their defensive front played well against the Steelers, Mike, but the Steelers' offense is not actually anything to write home about either. So it's always hard after 1 week to really judge what a unit is, whether it's offense or defense.
All right, we'll go some quick hitters right now with Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Those guys have great content leading you into all Eagles games, plus reaction after Eagles games. Let's get this one. 5 straight games with a turnover for Jalen Hurts. Does that snap tonight?
No. I think he'll have at least one.
Last Eagle, by the way, 6 straight games with an interception. Carson Wentz in 2016. Saquon Barkley has not had consecutive 100-yard games since 2021. Does he get that tonight?
100 total or 100 rushing?
100 rushing.
Yes.
Oh, nice. All right. Barkley 109 in week 1. Last time he did it, week 15 and 16 of 2021. We know A.J. Brown will not play tonight. He had 119 yards. He was looking to become the first Eagle with 100 yards in consecutive games to start the season since Deshaun Jackson back in 2013. That record or that honor stays to Jackson right now. Eagles have scored 30 or more in each of their last 3 primetime home games. Do they crack 30 with A.J. Brown out tonight?
No.
Ooh, all right. Low-scoring Eagles offense. And by the way, the Falcons lost by 8 points last week. They have 15 losses by 1 possession since the start of 2022. That's the most in the NFL. Is this a 1-possession game tonight?
Yes.
Oh, all right. With that, Geoff Mosher, who wins and why?
Well, I have to stick with my prediction from the pregame show, which was the Falcons 23, the Eagles 20.
23-20 Atlanta tonight for Geoff Mosher. Now, is that predicated on Brown being out? Is that a different 100%. Score if Brown is in?
I had the Eagles winning with Brown. But so, Mike, I real quick, I just think that if the Eagles are going to win this game, they have to win on 1st and 2nd down. Kind of, I don't know if you watched the Cowboys-Saints game, but the Saints just obliterated the Cowboys by scoring and having big chunk plays on 1st and 2nd down and avoiding 3rd down, avoiding the Cowboy pass rush. They only had 8 third downs the entire game, but they scored a lot on 1st and 2nd down. I think that's what the Eagles, if they're going to win this game, have to do, because without A.J. Brown, 3rd down is not going to be it's never a great down, but if you can convert 40, 45%, you're usually good. But I don't know if that's going to happen for them.
All right, he's Geoff Mosher, Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, and, of course, Football at 4. He's back on Wednesday. Adam is here tomorrow to look back at the Eagles and the Falcons, and that, of course, is right here on the Sports Bash Live, and you can listen to the Eagles and Falcons tonight on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Geoff Mosher, we'll see you on Wednesday.
Take care, Mike.
All right, Geoff Mosher, everybody, from the Inside the Birds podcast.